There are two rules in this house. Mrs. Eleanor Hayes, the longtime housekeeper for the Sterling family, her voice dry like autumn leaves, walked beside Amara Johnson, the 26-year-old black maid, on her first day down the marble-tiled hallway of the Sterling mansion in the New York suburbs. 1. You do exactly what you're told. 2, and most important, never go near the window at the end of the hall. And never talk to the boy. The boy? Amara gripped her mop bucket tighter, her eyes scanning the lavish but cold house, like a museum. Master Leo Sterling, Eleanor replied curtly, her lip curling slightly as if swallowing discomfort. 8 years old. He's special. Just treat him like part of the house. Like furniture. The previous maids didn't get that, and now they're gone. The air went still. Leo Sterling, son of tech billionaire Julian Sterling, stood motionless by the forbidden window at the hall's end, the skinny boy with messy brown hair and deep brown eyes. He raised a trembling finger toward the overgrown garden. His lips parted. Mom. Hurts, out there. A chill ran down Amara's spine. Not from the AC. This wasn't just random talk from a kid on the autism spectrum. It felt like a warning. Eleanor yanked the curtain shut with a snap, then tilted her head, her voice dropping like a lock clicking. Your work's on this side. Amara. Remember that if you want to keep this job? Amara nodded. But her eyes stayed glued to Leo. Why ban talking to a child? And out there, what was hidden behind that curtain? The first day at the Sterling mansion dragged on. Amara pushed the mop across the cold stone floor. The house was like a museum, bright, spotless, no family photos. She thought of her own mom, who always said, "Kindness is power, kid. Don't let the world make you forget that." That's why Amara took this job, to send money back for her sick mom and little sister. Just do your work and don't ask questions, the cook whispered. Here, questions come with a price. Yeah, Amara replied. Inside, she kept track. Watch, remember, don't show it. The staff moved like shadows, avoiding eye contact, especially with the boss. Through a cracked door, she saw Julian Sterling, over 50, gray suit, tight tie, video call voice sharp like a knife. Close the deal. When Amara accidentally spilled a glass of water, he didn't look up, clean it up. With Leo, it was even less. Hey, Leo, Dad's got a meeting, he said through the door, tone flat. But Amara spotted the exhaustion in his eyes, a dad hiding some deep pain. At 3 o'clock, the clock chimed. Amara was in the north hallway. So was Leo. He stood at the end window, the forbidden one, fingers gripping the wood edge, eyes fixed on the overgrown garden corner. Mom, hurt! Out there! Amara hadn't even stepped closer when Eleanor appeared, yanking the curtain. Snap! That's enough, Leo. She whispered something in his ear. Seconds later, he went silent like a switch flipped. Amara stood frozen. What did she whisper? And why did that garden spot freak her out so much? On her third night, Amara switched to the late shift. Passing Eleanor's room, she froze at a muffled cry like something stuffed into a pillow. It stopped fast, maybe regret, for something done long ago. Next morning, she stood before a blank white wall, deliberately blank, like a photo frame just removed. Julian's late wife, Isabella, was missing. The cook had whispered once. Mrs. Isabella died giving birth to Leo. Eleanor's her distant cousin, but she never talks about her. I saw her polishing a silver locket once, then hid it quickly when I walked in. Amara didn't dwell on it, but the story left a scratch in her mind, like a fingernail mark on wood. That afternoon, Leo dropped his toy, a wooden car with a chipped edge. It rolled to Amara's feet. By the rules, she should have called Eleanor, but the boy's eyes, like a silent plea, made her bend down. She picked it up and wiped it with her sleeve. Here you go, kid. She held it at eye level. Leo looked with a faint spark in his eyes. He didn't speak, just clutched the car tight. From then on, he trailed her 3 steps behind, like a gentle shadow. Eleanor noticed everything. In the kitchen, she blocked Amara. I told you, don't get involved. I'm just doing my job, Amara said, voice soft but steady. Your job doesn't include playing with the young master. She gritted her teeth. Remember, anyone can be replaced. Amara smiled politely. I know. But some things can't. Like a kid's heart. Eleanor didn't reply. Just turned away, her eyes sharp as knives. At 7 o'clock, Julian came home, straight to his office at 7:30, dinner on trays. No family table. 8 o'clock, garden lights off on timer. Everything programmed, even the darkness. Except one corner, the overgrown patch by the end window. Grass there grew taller, like hiding a secret. One evening, Amara saw Julian at Leo's window, hand on the frame, then walked away. She thought, he's not stone. He's ice. Clear, cold, cracking. The next day at 3 o'clock, Leo was at the end window again. Amara, he called softly, saying her name for the first time. She froze. Out there, he pointed to the bushes, lips moving. Lily. Who's Lily, Leo? She lowered her voice, kneeling to his level. He looked down. But the name Lily lingered like a rain scent on leaves. Amara didn't push. She just rested a hand lightly on his shoulder, like a promise she'd listen when he was ready. All day, Amara worked with a quiet question in her head. Leo's eyes weren't trivial. They were a cry for help. Every time the mop passed the window, she glanced at the garden. The more she looked, the more it seemed like a locked door. She didn't know what she'd do, but she knew she couldn't pretend not to see. Washing hands in the laundry room, Amara spotted a long scratch on that window frame. Thin, deep, curved. Like fingernails clawing to hold on. She touched it. Cold, deep, silent. Who left this? And who wanted it gone? Out back, the wind carried a wet grass smell. From the garden corner came a faint rustle, not a cat. She stood still. The sound stopped, then dashed away like a caught breath. Amara thought of Lily, a name like a white flower in a house of stone and steel. Maybe a person, maybe a memory, maybe a message. That night, Amara tossed and turned. She came here to work, not dig up secrets. But Leo's eyes, and her own memories, of being overlooked as a kid in a poor family, wouldn't let her turn away. She opened her phone, blue light glowing on the ceiling. Message from her sister. Mom eating okay? Insurance is still slow. Amara typed. I'll send more before payday. Savings thin as paper, but promises thick. Her mom had said, You don't need to be a hero, just kind. Here, kindness meant trouble. But without it, who would she be? Morning, polishing the stair rail, she caught Eleanor's reflection in the hanging mirror. She stood rigid, hands clasped, eyes blank. Today you do the north wing. Remember to draw the curtains before 3. Yes, Amara replied. But Eleanor's eyes, a flash of worry, made her notice. At 3, Amara was checking the curtains in the north hall when she saw Leo at the end window. He touched the scratch, whispering, Mom, hurts. Out there. She stepped over, about to draw the curtain as ordered, but his eyes held her back. Who's Lily, Leo? She asked softly. He placed a hand on his chest, counting 2. His brown eyes lit up, like begging her to understand. That's when her phone buzzed. Group message. Eleanor out to the pharmacy, back at 3:30. Amara looked at Leo, heart racing. This was a gap, not planned, but a chance. She didn't know what waited in the garden, but the boy's eyes said she had to act. Leo, she whispered, if you want, we can go out and see. You lead me, okay? He nodded slightly, gripping his wooden car. Amara opened the back door, no second thoughts. Kindness doesn't need a plan, just a heart willing to listen. Rain fell lightly, wind carrying damp earth into the air. Amara held Leo's hand, feeling his small, cold palm, but seeing the spark of determination in his eyes, a trust she knew she had to honor. Let's go, Leo, she whispered, gently pushing the back door leading to the garden. The scent of wild grass rushed in, like an invitation from long-held secrets. The cracked brick path led them to the forgotten garden corner, where bushes tangled like a dark wall. Leo stopped, pointing with 2 fingers. Here. Amara knelt, ignoring the mud soaking her uniform pants. She rolled up her sleeves, digging into the soft, wet soil with her fingers. Dirt slipped under her nails, but she didn't care. She focused on the feel beneath her fingertips. Roots, pebbles, then something cold and hard. She dug wider, uncovering a rusty iron post. A broken swing set. The remaining chain swayed lightly in the wind, creaking faintly, like a sigh from the past. Hook. Hook, Leo whispered, pointing to the curved metal where the chain attached. Amara looked closer. Tangled there was a small, thin object, glinting dimly in the gray afternoon light. She gently untangled it, a tarnished silver necklace. The heart-shaped locket was caked in mud. She wiped it with her shirt hem, feeling the delicate engravings under the fabric. She pressed the tiny clasp. A click sounded, small like a box exhaling after years of silence. Inside was a photo the size of a thumbnail, a young woman with a gentle smile, eyes sparkling with joy. And nestled in her arms were two white bundles side by side, two tiny lives, twins. Amara's heart tightened. "Mom," Leo whispered, his finger lightly touching the woman's face in the photo. Then he looked up, toward the thick bushes behind them, adding a sound like calling a lost half of his soul. "Lily." Half a family had been torn from the frame and buried in this ground. Leo's pain wasn't a symptom. It was a truth, and Amara knew holding it was the key to healing. "What the hell are you doing out here?" Eleanor's voice sliced through the air like a blade. She stood on the stone steps, black umbrella hiding most of her face, only her tight lips showing anger. Amara quickly tucked the locket into her coat pocket, standing up instinctively to shield Leo. "The boy just wanted to go outside," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Liar." Eleanor hurried down, her high heels sinking into the wet ground. "You've been warned." "Over and over!" "Who do you think you are, digging up this place's past? What's in this past that scares you so much?" Amara asked directly, her voice steady. "A broken swing? Or something else, like the truth about Isabella, your cousin?" The sound of a luxury car engine purred through the gate. Julian was home early. Seeing his son and the two women facing off in the garden, he rushed out, no umbrella, with the last raindrops sprinkling his expensive suit jacket. "What the hell's going on? Eleanor, why's Leo out here?" "Sir," Eleanor seized the moment, her voice trembling dramatically. "I caught her. She dragged the young master out in the rain and started digging in the back garden. I tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen." "I'm afraid she has bad intentions toward him." Julian looked at the mud on Amara's hands, the broken swing, then his shivering son hiding behind the maid. His face hardened. "Amara, what do you have to say?" Amara didn't defend herself. She knew her words carried no weight right now. She just silently pulled out the locket from her pocket and handed it to him. "Leo led me here. This was caught on the swing hook. There's a woman and two kids in the photo. Leo calls the woman Mom and mentions Lily. I don't know exactly what it means, but the boy wanted you to see it." Julian stepped forward, his hand hesitating before taking the locket. His eyes hit the photo and recoiled like burned. He staggered, grabbing a nearby tree for support. "Isabella," he muttered, voice breaking, not a question, but a desperate cry. "Two kids?" "The hospital said..." "They said only one survived," Dr. Anderson confirmed. "Just Leo." He stared at the locket, hands shaking. "But this..." "This shows too. It's a scam," Eleanor yelled, trying to regain control. "Fake photo to extort money. She planned it all." Julian turned to Eleanor, cold doubt clear in his eyes for the first time. "Then why ban everyone from this spot? Why always draw the curtains when my son looks out here? Answer me, Eleanor. You're Isabella's cousin. What do you know about that birthday?" Because it brings back painful memories of her." Eleanor stammered, a weak lie. Julian didn't buy it. He knelt to Leo's level, mud staining his expensive pants. "Leo, tell Dad, what do you see here? What are you trying to say?" Leo took a deep breath, his wide eyes looking over his dad's shoulder, toward the thick bushes where shadows fell. It was her routine. Every afternoon, Lily would come to the forest edge, hiding behind the bushes, just to glimpse the boy with a face like hers. She'd escaped her adoptive family years ago at age 5, surviving on the streets with help from kind locals. But hazy memories of the big house and brother always drew her back. Today was no different. She'd crept to her spot but froze seeing so many people. Scared, she turned to run into the woods, but right then, Leo spotted her. Seeing the familiar shape about to vanish, panic surged in him. For the first time, he didn't just whisper. He let out a weak but clear call, full of desperation. "Lee! Don't go!" His call made her freeze. She stood at the forest edge, half in shadow, half in light, body trembling with fear, but her feet stuck. The whole garden fell silent, just rain pattering on leaves. Eleanor went pale, face ashen. Julian turned, following his son's gaze. And he saw it. A small, familiar figure that broke his heart. The ice wall he'd built around his heart for 8 years finally cracked. All from one small call from the son he'd never truly listened to. From the bushes, the girl didn't step out right away. She just stood there, frozen like a little animal caught in headlights, scared and confused. Lily came here for a quiet connection, not to face 4 strangers. Her big brown eyes were wide, teary, and ready to bolt back into the woods any second. But fuzzy memories of brother and home kept her feet planted. Julian held his breath. He couldn't believe his eyes. That face, it was Leo's twin. Like someone copied his son's face onto a fragile, worn-down version, his legs went weak, and his hand pressed into the ground to stay upright. For the first time in 8 years, he realized how much he'd missed by not listening. Seeing his sister scared, Leo did something no one expected. He gently let go of Amara's hand, stepping forward like saying, "I'll protect her." He didn't speak anymore. He just held out his small hand, palm up, a simple invite, no threat. Then he whispered one sound, the one he'd repeated hundreds of times at the window, now with new meaning. "There." "You're there. I see you." The girl, Lily, seemed to get it. Her tense body relaxed a bit, but her feet stayed glued. She just stood, shaking, a tear rolling down her dirty cheek. After years on the run, this was the first real connection she felt. Eleanor went pale. All her denials and lies crumbled before this raw, painful truth. Seeing how fragile it all was, like a thin thread, Amara stepped in. She ignored stunned Julian and panicking Eleanor. She focused on the kids. She slowly knelt, making herself smaller, no threat. She said nothing, just looked at Lily and gave a soft smile. A real one, no demands, no judgment, just, "I see you. You're safe." Then she turned to Leo, handing him a dry scarf from her coat pocket. "Give this to her, kid." Leo took the scarf. He walked slowly, careful steps toward Lily, like on thin ice. He didn't try wiping her face or hands. He just gently placed the scarf in her hand, like a gift, a promise. That small, trusting act shattered the fear wall. Lily hesitated, then reached out, her tiny, rough fingers touching the soft, warm scarf. She gripped it tight, like a lifeline, and for the first time, she smiled faintly. Amara spoke then, voice soft and warm like the scarf. "There's warm milk and cookies inside. Want to come in? No one's going to scare you. Just me and Leo. You'll be safe." She held out her hand, not to Lily, but to Leo. Leo grabbed it, then looked back at Lily, his eyes a silent invite. After a pause that felt like forever, Lily stepped forward, and her small mud-caked hand rested lightly on Leo's. A bond broken 8 years ago, finally mended, thanks to one simple, kind act. Julian watched it all, frozen. He got the bitter truth. Love doesn't need money or power. It needs the right gesture, patience, and a safe heart to lean on. And the one giving that safety wasn't him, the real dad, but Amara, a maid he'd barely glanced at. This time he'd change. "Let's go inside," Julian said, voice hoarse with emotion. "All of us. We'll talk in the house." They walked in, kids in the middle, hand in hand. Amara was beside them like a quiet guardian. Julian followed, feeling like a stranger in his own home. Only Eleanor was left alone in the garden, like a forgotten statue, drowned by rain and truth. In the warm living room, Lily curled on the big sofa, clutching the scarf like a treasure. Leo sat close, not leaving her side. Amara brought warm milk and cookies, setting them down gently, no noise. Julian sat across, ignoring Eleanor cowering in the corner. He looked at his 2 kids, 2 halves of a life he didn't know existed. "What did you do?" he asked, voice low and heavy, each word like a stone. Eleanor's confession came after, not in screams, but bitter, jealous words spilling like poison. "I'm Isabella's cousin." "I've always been in her shadow. She had everything. Money, your love. Even in death she wins. I just wanted to take something from her. Something she loved most." She spilled it all, from the hospital plot with Dr. Anderson, who faked the death certificate to hide the second baby over an old debt to Eleanor, to selling Lily to a couple in the nearby countryside. But Lily escaped years ago, scraping by and coming back to the garden from hazy memories of her brother. Eleanor knew and chased her off, but didn't report it, fearing exposure. Julian listened, face like stone. When she finished, he just picked up the phone. "Brant, send someone over. We got a child abduction case," and check the hospital records, starting with Dr. Anderson. As cops arrived and cuffed Eleanor, she passed Amara, eyes full of hate. "You think you won?" "This isn't a fight," Amara replied, eyes on the kids sharing a cookie. "This is bringing a kid home and listening to what the heart says." After it all settled, with just silence and a warm milk smell in the room, Julian sat on the floor, a bit away from the kids. He didn't rush close. He just said, voice full of regret and pain, "I'm sorry. I've been a lousy dad. I didn't see. I didn't listen." Leo looked up at him. He pointed to Lily, then himself, and said one word, but it held a whole story, a universe of loss and found. 2. Julian nodded, tears rolling down the face of a man who never cried. "Yeah, son, 2, always 2. And I'll listen from now on." Eleanor Hayes' fate was sealed quickly and coldly behind bars, but the ripples she left in the Sterling mansion lingered. Those first days felt like walking on thin ice. Lily, for the first time, slept in a warm bed, but she'd jolt awake at night, only calming when she saw Leo on the rug beside her, like a loyal guard. Julian skipped his office. He sat in the armchair outside their hall all night, not to control, but to make sure those 2 soft breaths in the room were still there, safe. He started learning to listen, from Leo's little stories, from Lily's fears. Healing was a series of awkward but real moments. Julian figured out how to make hot chocolate just sweet enough for Lily, not too much like he thought. Leo, with amazing patience, taught Lily the TV remote, pointing to the red and green buttons over and over. Amara, with endless gentleness, showed Lily how to braid hair and get used to normal house sounds, vacuum hum, doorbell, running water. She also shared her doubts about Dr. Anderson with Julian, from Eleanor's words, sparking a private investigation. The house came alive. Lily's giggles when Leo made funny faces replaced the heavy silence. Cookie crumbs on the floor were swapped for sterile ones. It wasn't perfect. It was a family practicing rebirth from ashes, thanks to the power of listening. A week later, with a fragile new rhythm forming, Julian decided it was time to erase the toxic past completely. "Amara," he said one morning, watching the kids scribble on paper at the table, "help me clear out Eleanor's room. Toss everything. We'll turn it into a real playroom for the kids, full of light. And thank you for listening to Leo when I didn't." "Yes, sir," Amara nodded. She knew this wasn't just cleaning. It was a cleansing ritual, saying darkness had no place here anymore. Eleanor's room was cold and too neat, like its owner never really lived there. Amara started, packing old clothes into big bags, taking down lifeless landscape paintings. She worked methodically, feeling a lightness inside. Each item gone was like wiping away a layer of toxic dust from the house. When she and another staffer moved the heavy wardrobe from the corner, she noticed a warped floorboard, a small sign she'd suspected, since Eleanor always avoided that area. After the staffer left, she returned, prying it up with her fingertips. The board creaked and popped out. Underneath, in a small hollow, was a worn cloth-bound notebook. Curious, Amara picked it up. This wasn't something Eleanor meant to leave. She sat on the floor, flipping the yellowed pages. The early ones were full of jealous, bitter words aimed at Isabella. But toward the end, the writing got hurried and messy, until a scribbled entry chilled Amara's neck. "It's all done. The baby vanished. Sterling will never know. I couldn't do it alone. Without him, the plan would have failed. He faked the death certificate perfectly, no cracks. And he still comes monthly, checking Leo, to keep the secret safe." Amara read it again. "Him?" Her heart pounded like a drum. She flipped to the last page. There, just one line in red ink, like dried blood that wouldn't fade. "Thanks to Dr. Anderson, the Sterling family's loyal friend, and my accomplice." Amara dropped the journal. The floor seemed to tilt under her. Dr. Anderson, the respected family doctor. The one who delivered Isabella. The one still coming monthly for Leo and Julian's checkups. The one who'd smiled and said Leo was just a bit special all these years. Now she saw, maybe to monitor and cover up, the monster wasn't alone. And the other one, still in a white coat, stethoscope in hand, way too close to them. The peace they'd just found turned out to be the calm before a much bigger storm. But Amara knew, with listening and kindness, they'd get through, because one small act can change fates. What makes this story heavy isn't the mansion or secrets, but the moment someone listens. Amara had no power, but she did what no one else in that house did. Open her heart to a forgotten kid. Just one small act. Changed fates. Leo found his voice. Lily found her family, and Julian Sterling finally knelt to be a dad. If this story hits you, like, share, and subscribe to Toch Story to spread the power of listening. Because sometimes all a life needs is someone to sit down and hear.